Welcome to another episode of Why 5% Succeed. This is a really fun show, and it's not just about me and my guests, it's about you. And we love to have you here and participating with us. Feel free to insert your comments underneath the event screen because we'd love to include you in this fantastic conversation. Now, the way this show works is I provide a little bit of training based on my Why 5% Succeed training, and I invite a special guest to be a part of this dialogue. They riff off of what I had to say, interpret it their own way, and then show how they're applying it in their business. So you get to learn something from two perspectives. You get to learn how it applies to you personally and how to implement it for yourself, but then you also get to learn how to implement similar strategies in your own business so you can serve your clients at a much higher level. So it's a twofer. We love doing twofers here. I'm Elaine Starling. I'm your host, and I'm really excited to be here today because there are two critical things your clients want help with. The first is in managing fear, and the second is maintaining focus. There are so many distractions today, it's really hard to maintain focus and get the progress that you need in your business. Now, the catch with helping your clients is that you have to manage your own fear first and maintain your own focus first in order to be successful with your clients. And that can be a real challenge sometimes. Right now we're facing the new year, 2015, and there's a lot of excitement around what could be possible for you. But there might also be a little bit of anxiety maybe, a little bit of concern, anticipating some challenges, some opportunities for you to grow your business, but it might be a little intimidating sometimes. So how do you manage that? Because every single person has what I call emotional sonar. Your body takes in information through sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and thinking. You take in information and you say, what does this mean? And immediately you respond back, how do I feel? What does this mean? How do I feel? What does this mean? How do I feel? And you're constantly doing this all day long with every situation, with every circumstance. It doesn't matter how great something has been in the past. You want it to be great over and over and over again. So you're using that sonar to make some decisions about how you feel. Are you feeling fear? Or am I focused? What am I paying attention to? Because those little distractions could just pull you out of alignment. It's really important to manage your fear and maintain your focus. And part of the challenge is we all have something called mirror neurons. They're located in your brain right behind your eyebrows. And those are great, but there's a little catch. Mirror neurons allow you to connect with another person and really understand what another person is going through, but at the same time you can accidentally take on their emotions. And if they're uncomfortable, if they're nervous, if they're worried, if they're in a state of anxiety, you literally start to feel what they're feeling. You take it on in your body. And it's challenging sometimes to recognize if it's something that you're dealing with or if it's something that your client is dealing with, and manage it appropriately. It's interesting because oftentimes people say, well, fear, okay, so that's fight, flight, or freeze. And I'm not running, I'm not trying to belt somebody, and I'm not frozen solid. I'm not in fear, right? Well, fear has a very different view right now. When I'm talking about fear in today's business environment, I'm talking about some discomfort. You're not sure how things are going to turn out, and you're a little concerned that it might not go the way you want it to. You can't anticipate exactly how things are going to happen. Or maybe you're feeling really overwhelmed. You've got a lot of things you have to get done, and it's challenging to figure out what your priorities really need to be. Maybe you're just frustrated. It's driving you nuts. You've been working hard on this and you just can't figure it out. Fear has a different kind of face on it right now. But one of the challenges with fear, it's so funny, I'm really interested in science and technology. And I consider myself to be a very scientific, very analytical person. And the more research I do, the more I discover it's all in your head. It's all in your head. That's why it's so important that you set expectations. You set expectations for yourself first, because expectations help you manage your own fear. And when you've got those expectations, that helps you maintain focus too. So it's really powerful when you can manage your own fear and set expectations at the same time. So you get what you expect. If you think things are going to go great and you're going to have a wonderful time, it's going to be easy, it's going to be fun, guess what? It is. If you think that it's going to be challenging and difficult and hard and confusing, it probably will be. So I want to help you understand how to manage your own expectations, and that's why I invited a really special, really amazing lady to join me today. I'm so lucky to have Kristin van Tilburg join me. Kristin is a certified feminine power coach. She's also been certified in something called EFT. Another word for it is tapping. Kristin, welcome to the show, and please help me explain what EFT really is and what that means.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Elaine. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm thrilled to talk about EFT because anyone who doesn't know this really simple technique really wants to listen up, because EFT can really change your ability to manage your own state, which, as you mentioned, is one of the most critical business skills that we have today. And I loved what you said about these little crazy mirror neurons that we just not that long ago, I guess, isolated the fact that they're there. But that's the energy that keeps us connected, and when this connection is fuzzy, we have to learn how to take the lead and correct that energy so that we can create the outcomes and the results that we want. So EFT is, E stands for emotional, F stands for freedom, and T stands for technique, a way to be free in the way that you express yourself and the way that you deal with your feelings, a freedom from your emotions. And so many of us feel victimized by our emotional state. But this technology came out of the Chinese medicine area, where if you've ever had acupressure or used acupuncture, you know that the body has these 15 energy meridians running through it. And when we are in the flow, that energy is flowing freely and smoothly, and that's that feeling of being in the flow, being in that peak state that we all love so much. But when that energy gets blocked up because of belief systems or emotions that are not in alignment with that constant source of creativity that we're connected to, it creates problems. So the emotional freedom technique is a way to stimulate those meridians and let that energy start moving again. And it's unbelievably effective as a tool for moving emotions that are dammed up or stuck, or if you're just in an energy that you don't want, you want to shift it, using this technique can really help.
That's great. And, you know, I want to share a little story about this because, like I said, I consider myself, if you consider Eastern versus Western medicine, I'm more on the Western side. I have not been, in the past, very comfortable with the Eastern methodologies. And I was at a conference, and my back went out on me, and I was really in a lot of pain. I couldn't focus very effectively on the conference because I was so uncomfortable. And there was a gentleman there who was an energy worker, and he offered to help me. And I could tell he was very sincere, and he really wanted to make a difference. Well, somebody had given me a massage, and that hadn't helped. And, you know, it turns out when you're in enough pain, you really, really, really want that pain to go away. Now would be good. And I thought, you know what? If somebody told me to run in a circle, flap my arms, and cluck like a chicken and I'd feel better, I'd do it in a heartbeat because I'm so uncomfortable. I want to feel better. And I said, great. Anything you can do to help, I really appreciate it. Within 5 minutes, that pain was gone. Completely gone. Can I prove what he did? No. Can I document exactly the scientific nature of it? No. Can I duplicate it personally? No. But there's a lot of my life that I trust others are experts at something that I'm not an expert in. I don't have to know every single recipe in the restaurant before I pick which kind of food I want to have. I don't have to have a medical degree before I'm willing to go to a doctor and get some feedback and insight. So I think it's really important when we were talking about setting expectations. Anybody who has never heard of EFT before, if you've got a little emotional resistance going, oh my gosh, this is woo-woo, I don't do woo-woo. That would have been me a few years ago. And I really want to invite you to open your thinking and just recognize there is so much that we don't understand yet. We're still learning a lot about the human body and how it works and how we can control it. We're learning that a lot of success starts up here, and it's not as much exactly what you're doing as much as how you think about what you're doing, and then what shows up is exactly what needs to show up. So I just want to invite people to be open to EFT. Kristin, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I do. I agree, and I think it's so great what you're saying. You know how it's so funny how you can be a professional and people pay you, and yet your own family is like, oh, come on, come on, Mom. I have a daughter, 30-year-old daughter, and she is just not into EFT. And a couple of weeks ago, she called me, and she said, Mom, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got this terrible pain in my jaw. She said, I think I'm going to have to go to the dentist tomorrow, and it just hurts so bad. And I said, being the great mother that I am, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. How can I help you? And she said, well, I don't know, Mom, but it hurts, and I can't even open my mouth, and I don't know what to do. And I said, well, look, you don't have very much to lose. Why don't we try some EFT? So she did it. And by the end of our little session, like 10 minutes, the pain, her mouth was opening and shutting easily, and the pain was almost gone, and she didn't have to go to the dentist. By the next morning, she was fine. So for any of the people out there that love going to the dentist as much as I do, I'm not saying it's perfect, but, it's worth a try. And unbelievable miracles have happened for people with EFT. You can Google it. The world is full. And also, there's a lot of science now about the effects of EFT. And as it turns out, one of the main things that EFT affects is a part of the brain called the amygdala. And that's where all this fight or flight business gets started in the first place. So when you can have a tool that gives you access to calming that energy down in the amygdala, it opens up the body's ability to heal itself. And that's something that I think we can all get excited about.
Absolutely. I love that you present that perspective because it's so true. Oftentimes, what's happening is stimulated in the brain. And if you learn how to control some of those very primitive parts of the brain, you have so much more control over everything in your life. So learning how to embody, how to use this wonderful tool called EFT can really open things up for your life. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about, one of the things that I say to my clients all the time is that fear is just a signpost. Anytime you're feeling stressed out or anxious or overwhelmed or frustrated, that is a timeout signpost from your brain. And it's trying to get your attention to remind you that you are capable and resourceful. And right now, you are choosing to let your amygdala take over and drive those fear sensations in your body. It takes your body 90 seconds to process an emotion, any emotion. Fear, frustration, overwhelm, 90 seconds. All you need to do is breathe deeply, relax, let your body process that, and reach for a different thought. If you could decide to be capable and resourceful in this moment and reach for a tool that can help you release the fear, manage your fear, so you can maintain focus, that's what it's all about. So don't get worried about being afraid and feeling emotions. You want to feel a rich tapestry of emotions. Those are those surfing waves that you get to ride throughout the day. It's a ton of fun when you can feel those movements and know that you can be on top. Know that you have the capability and the resourcefulness to figure out the tools that will best serve you. Now, one of my favorite books, Strength Finder 2.0, love this book. On page 4 and 5, they talk about a study that they did on managers. And it turns out that if your manager primarily ignores you, there's about a 40% chance that you'll be completely disengaged and you become kind of a black hole. Your mirror neurons are sending out bad signals to other people and you're pushing them away from you. If your manager focuses on your weaknesses, there's a 22% chance that you will be disengaged and that black hole nasty person. If your manager focuses on your strengths, there's only a 1% chance that you will be that disenfranchised black hole person. Now, I love this idea because it occurred to me as soon as I read that you have a manager with you 24/7, 365. They sit between your left ear and your right ear and left ear, whichever one. I'm doing this in reverse. But you've got your own manager right up here. So the better you are at managing your manager and helping your manager focus on your strengths, on your abilities, on how capable and resourceful you are, the better you make progress in your own life. And one of the things that's so important to recognize, we use this emotional sonar. What does this mean? How do I feel? What does this mean? How do I feel? To judge and to decide if we're doing well or not. You look at somebody who's making tons of money, they've got a new startup, their business is thriving and growing, and you're like, oh, my business isn't there yet. Oh, I must be a failure. And you feel bad. And it's that judging that does it to you. But that's focusing on the wrong thing. That's not allowing your manager to focus on the fact that you've made a ton of progress already. And if anybody else has achieved success, that's a clear sign that you can do just as well, if not better. Now, I know that you've got some very great things to share with us today, Kristin, and I'd love to jump right into it because especially now, we're about to start a new year, 2015, and a lot of my clients are struggling to make more money in their business. They really are. They would love to close some new contracts and get some things started right this new year. And one of the challenges that I find is walking in the door, you're trying to make the sale, obviously, but if you're too focused on, I gotta make the money, I gotta make the sale, you're not fully present for your client, and it diminishes the value of the experience that you create for your client. So could you walk us through an EFT session? Take 2 or 3 minutes to just do this with us, and I'll reflect back what you're doing.
Okay. Well, let me just go through the points real quick. So the first point is at the inside of the eyebrow, right where your own eyebrow comes down toward your nose. The second point is at the outside of the eyebrow, over on this bone over here on the side of your eye. The third point is underneath the center of your eye. Again, there's a bone right there that you can feel. The next point is under the nose, and there's a little bit of a hollow there. You tap into that little bit of hollow. Then on the chin, where the lip is coming down and the chin is coming up, and there's that little circle, tapping right in there. Then the collarbone, and that's down here on the top of the chest. Again, it's a bone that you're tapping on, and that can be either side. Some people just sort of use their hand and tap across the middle, but either side is okay too. And then there's a spot under the arm, which we'll probably skip today, but for normal tapping, you would tap under the arm. That just looks too silly. And then there's a spot on the top of the head. And when you tap on the top of the head, it's good to tap in a little circle, sort of going around the crown of your head. So those are the tapping points that we like to use. And then also there is a point on the side of the hand, called right here where the little finger meets the palm of your hand. That's called the karate chop point. So we usually start by tapping on the karate chop point because that's a good clearing place. So I'm going to pretend that you're my client and you've come to me and you're really desperate for making some new sales, and you're saying, I've got bills piling up and I don't know how I'm going to get, I have, taxes are due and my quarterly payments, and I don't really know how I can get all this paid, and I really have got to have some new clients this January. So that's what you've said to me, and so we're going to respond to those feelings with EFT. So we're going to start on the karate chop point, and I'm tapping with 2 fingers, whatever's comfortable for you. And also just to know, EFT is very forgiving. It's hard to mess it up. So to get in the general vicinity, your body will take the cues from there. So starting on this karate chop point, even though I feel this terrible fear, Elaine,
and do I say it back to you? Okay, even though I feel this terrible fear,
I completely accept these feelings.
I completely accept these feelings.
Even though I'm really afraid I don't have the money I need to pay my bills,
even though I'm really afraid I don't have the money I need to pay my bills,
I accept and love myself anyway.
I accept and love myself anyway.
Even though I'm really overwhelmed by these feelings of panic and fear,
even though I'm really overwhelmed by these feelings of panic and fear,
I accept myself and all these feelings.
I accept myself and all these feelings.
Okay. Do you notice any difference just from that?
I do.
I feel a sort of feeling in my stomach. I was kind of excited about being here with you and saying words that are about that issue. I can feel my body just getting a little bit more centered and a little more grounded. So now we move into the tapping on these individual points. All this fear, my feelings of panic, I'm so overwhelmed,
I'm
really desperate,
I'm really feeling desperate,
I've got to have some new contracts,
I've got to have some new contracts,
I've got to sign my new clients up,
I've got to sign my new clients up,
they've just got to say yes,
they've just got to say yes.
If I don't make some more money, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills.
If I don't make some more money, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills.
The future is so scary.
The future is so scary.
I'm really terrified of what's going to happen.
I'm really terrified of what's going to happen.
If these new clients don't sign with me, I'm done for.
If these new clients don't sign with me, I'm done for.
It's all over.
It's all over.
I can't even bear to think about it.
I can't even bear to think about it.
Words like bankruptcy.
Words like bankruptcy.
Words like closing the doors.
Words like closing the doors.
Words like failure.
Words like failure.
Oh gosh, it's horrifying to think about it.
It's just horrifying to think about it.
I can't stand these feelings.
I can't stand these feelings.
I'm really desperate.
I'm really desperate.
I'm really hopeless.
I'm really hopeless.
This terror is taking me over.
This terror is taking me over.
I'm really afraid.
I'm really afraid.
Okay, so if we were doing this session, we would pause now, and I would check in with the client, and they would tell me how they're doing. So I know that we weren't really working on your issue, but you know.
Well, I do notice a difference, and the thing that I want to really call attention to is the very first thing you're doing is acknowledging what's real for you right now. It doesn't mean that that's what's going to be your future. It just means this is where I am right now. And getting your brain to understand that you hear, you accept, you recognize what it's trying to share with you, that's a really powerful thing. Because so often we try to just ignore it, brush it under the rug, distract yourself, have something to eat, do something that makes you feel better in the short term, but the problem doesn't really go away. And those anxious feelings come up more and more and more. And the best way to handle it is to acknowledge it, accept it. It is the reality right this second, but it only takes 90 seconds for that feeling, for that emotion to work its way through your body. And when you're using the EFT technique, you can process it much more rapidly. So Kristin, could you take us on to the second phase of the technique?
Right. So normally we would check in and we would say, the client would probably tell me that their feelings of panic about money are at a 9 or a 10 on a scale of 0 to 10. And so we would tap around and around and around until they told me that those feelings were down to a 5 or less. So we use this subjective scale to know how long we need to tap on these first feelings of panic and desperation. Because you're right, in 90 seconds a lot can clear. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, especially if this fear and these money problems have been going on for a long time. It may be that that first 90 seconds makes a little relief and you feel like, well, maybe it's gone down to an 8. But we're looking for a pretty significant shift. So we would work on those desperate feelings until the client was telling me they had an intensity of 5 or less. And then we would move on. So I'm going to make some things up, but normally I would have a conversation with my client and I would know enough about the client to begin to make some suggestions about ways that they can shift their perspective. So I'm just going to use some examples from my own clients in the past, but just know that if we were working together, they would be tailor-made just for you. So these feelings of desperation.
These feelings of desperation.
These feelings of panic.
These feelings of panic.
All my thoughts about my debts.
All my thoughts about my debts.
I'm realizing it's not quite as bad as I thought.
I'm realizing it's not quite as bad as I thought.
I was sort of overreacting.
I was sort of overreacting.
I mean, yeah, we need some more clients to come in, but I'm not at that point right now.
Yeah, we need more clients to come in, but I'm not at that bad a point right now.
And I'm thinking that I could approach this situation in a more constructive way.
I'm thinking I could approach this situation in a more constructive way.
I mean, the truth is I have a lot to offer.
The truth is I have a lot to offer.
And I know some things about these clients.
And I know some things about these clients.
And I happen to know that what I have to offer will be of great benefit to them.
And I happen to know that what I have to offer will be of great benefit to them.
So really what I want to place my focus on is what their needs are.
So really what I want to place my focus on is what their needs are.
And let my needs recede in the background.
And let my needs recede to the background.
And focus on what I can contribute to the situation my client's in.
And focus on what I can contribute to the situation my client's in.
That's when I really feel good about myself.
That's when I really feel good about myself.
When I focus on what I can contribute.
When I focus on what I can contribute.
When I focus on my gifts.
When I focus on my gifts.
When I focus on my talents.
When I focus on my talents.
When I focus on my ability to serve people.
When I focus on my ability to serve people.
Then I really am touching into my value.
Then I really am touching into my value.
And I know what my strengths are.
And I know what my strengths are.
So when I go and talk to my client, my focus can be on them and not on myself.
So when I go and talk to my client, my focus can be on them and not on myself.
And that's when I really feel like I do my best work.
And that's when I really feel like I do my best work.
Okay, so we
Wow! That was great. That was really great. You know, it's funny when you were kind of getting worked up in the beginning and you were getting a bit anxious and pretending to be the client that was having all these fears and frustrations. I could feel that. The mirror neurons were right there. And as we went through that tapping technique, the frustration, the anxiety level just totally reduced, totally relaxed. And I love that you're first acknowledging where you are and then shifting into a state that's far more resourceful and capable and really recognizing your own strengths and what you're bringing to the party. That was awesome.
Yay. Well, it really makes a difference for people. And when a salesperson or a business owner is about to go into a sales meeting, a little tapping on both of those two areas can really shift their energy so that they are going into the sales presentation with an attitude of service and contribution and being really connected to their strengths and their value, as opposed to, being needy and projecting that energy to the client.
Absolutely. That's so important. And, one of the things that we were going to talk about today is what money really means. And it's so important to wrap your head around this idea because so much in our society is tied to money. And do you have money? And do you have all the stuff that is illustrative of money? But in reality, money is a thank you. Money is just another form of showing appreciation and acknowledging someone's contribution. And the way you're getting money is through the rewarding experience you provide, the great relationship you provide, your reputation and how you make that available to help others, and how you help people make revenue. You help them make more money, save more money, or feel like $1 million. It's those four things. That's what actually makes you relevant to your ideal prospect. That's what they're after. They want that rewarding experience. They want great relationships with people they can rely on, that get them, that can really help them get where they want to go. They're looking to enhance their own reputation, and aligning with you allows them to do that. And of course, they're trying to increase their revenue. So when you can increase your relevance to your prospective clients, and the second thing, increase your relationships, the number of people you serve, the quantity and quality of the people you serve. Let me give you an example. A surgeon probably doesn't have a gazillion relationships. They might do surgery on 50 people a year. But what they have is really high relevance and a very eager buying audience. People who are ready to buy because they've got an urgent need. So when you're thinking about money, you have to recognize that it's really just about increasing your relevance and increasing your relationships. If you want more money in your life, that's really where you need to go. And it all circles back to how you can be capable and resourceful in the moment. How can you show up with that perspective of service? Because that shifts everything. Kristin, what's your take on money?
Money is really, when you look at a dollar bill, it's a piece of paper. The value that money has is something that you said earlier. It's all in our heads. And a lot of the attitude that we have about money was formed when we were so young that we didn't even know. When my daughter was about, I guess maybe 5 years old, we were in the grocery store one day and she wanted one of these toys that they're always dangling in front of kids on the aisles. And I told her, no, we don't have enough money for that. And she said to me, well, you can just go to that machine at the front and it'll give you some money. That's what money is to a little kid. It's out there in a machine. If you need more, you just go push those nice buttons and it spits it out at you. Well, I didn't have a money machine when I was growing up, so my thoughts about money are a little different than my daughter's. But I was raised, gosh, I went to a Woolworths. This is how old I am. I went to a Woolworths when I was a little kid with a quarter, and I was there for an hour trying to figure out how to spend it because, a quarter was a big deal, and you just didn't go throw your money down. I mean, some kids did, but I was really careful, and I was weighing my options and everything. And I can tell when I look back on my childhood that money was a scarce commodity, even though my family was middle class and we always had food and shelter and our basic needs. But the idea was not we have plenty, which we did. The idea is we don't really have enough. And so my ideas about money, I have had to do a lot of EFT around that idea about money in order to free that up and know that money is really just an expression, like you said, of appreciation. I pay for things by appreciating that I can have them, that I need them, what contribution they're going to make to my life. And when I receive money for my services, it's because I'm contributing something to someone. I'm adding value to their life, and they're appreciating that. So I've been working with myself for a while now to just change those definitions about money so that I don't walk around with this subconscious feeling that there's just not enough. But until you take the time to identify those things, they run your life. You go around with these neurons that are constantly firing lack, not enoughness, scarcity, I need more. And it doesn't matter for many of us whether we have $5 in the bank or $5 million in the bank. We're worried about money.
Well, Kristin, I know, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I know that you've written a great ebook. And I'd love for you to talk quickly about your ebook and how people can get a copy.
Well, this is just a little book that I created. It's called Ending Self-Sabotage with Money, 20 False Beliefs You Need to Let Go of Today. And that's really an important thing. You know, there's plenty of false beliefs about money out there in the world, but I've created about 20 of some of the top ones. And I just go in and discuss a little bit about what these beliefs are and what's underlying that, and then create some suggestions for people about a new belief that they can reinsert. And if they have this EFT tapping technique and they find that they have one of those false beliefs about money, like I don't have enough, I don't have enough money, money is scarce for me, I don't have enough money, they can tap on it and they'll find that that habitual structure in the brain that continues to project to them I don't have enough begins to quiet down, and they can then do some tapping on I have plenty to be grateful for. Look at all the this and I have, and look at all the that I have. Look at all the value I can add to my clients. And that shifts around their inner structure, and that allows them to see new opportunities. And when they see new opportunities, so make new choices. And that leads to a different 2015 from the one from last year. And the one that they'll have if they don't do that work. I mean, we have a trajectory that's already formed that's all about the habits and patterns that we have in our brain. If we don't take conscious steps to interrupt that, we are going to end up on that trajectory. If you want to change...
You know what you're talking about? I want to interrupt you for just a second because what you're talking about is your expectations, right? This is what you've been telling yourself over and over and over again, and you've set these expectations, and your non-conscious mind just is immediately sorting to meet your expectations. So when you can reset your own expectations, focus on your own strengths, focus on what's working in your life, focus on all that you have to be grateful for, it's amazing how that shifts. It changes everything that's happening for you, because the more you notice what works, the more you notice what works. There's more that works, that shows up for you. So I really hope that you can embrace that this year. And Kristin has made it even easier with a special gratitude meditation. Can you explain how people can get a hold of that gratitude meditation? And Dane's going to share the link to that in the comment section underneath the event here too.
Yeah, exactly. No, I created this meditation for a specific client who asked me, she said, I want to start out my day feeling grateful, but I don't really know how to generate that on my own. So I created this 6-minute meditation that was specifically for her, and then I started thinking, well, you know, that's the kind of thing that many, many people might like to have access to. And so it's my desire to add value and to contribute and give to people by sharing this meditation that I created. So I'm glad that there's a link, because that's not a simple, not just on my website. So they'll have to copy the link down and click on the link. But I'd just be delighted to share that with people, because one thing that you said early on about fear and gratitude cannot coexist. If you are focused on gratitude, you are not going to be in fear. And if you're in fear, you are not going to be able to feel grateful. So when you are really bound up with fear, doing a gratitude meditation can really shift that energy, and it's another way to change your state and change what you're focused on.
That's great. Well, we've kind of come full circle, and we're about out of time. Kristin, I have one last question for you, and it is my hardest question ever for anybody to answer. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you would particularly like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, 2015 I think is going to be a really different year than 2014. 2014 was a lot about people clearing out old patterns, whether they were conscious of it or not. Every client I had, my friends, my family, all of us, myself included, we were really confronted last year with the challenges that were an opportunity for us to see where we had limiting beliefs and how we could, for those of us that are conscious and willing to evolve, what we needed to do to break free and break through. But I think 2015, because we have done so much work, is going to be for a lot of people a year of flow, a year of abundance and vitality, and a year of grateful than it was in 2014. So it's my great wish for you and all your listeners that they enjoy that feeling of flow, and that they use this tool of EFT to be able to reconnect on those occasions when life throws something in their way that pops them out of the flow.
Kristin, thank you so much. This has been a delightful dialogue, and I really appreciate you taking the time to actually walk us through a session of EFT so we could experience it personally. Everybody, I'd love to have you join us again next week, and Happy New Year. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.